Hi, I'm Mike. Welcome to Mike's Garden Sense. I'm standing in front of a typical San Jose, California home where the normal landscape is lawn with plants planted against the house. California has water issues, and a lot of people are deciding to take out part of the lawn and instead plant drought-resistant plants to help conserve water. The owner of this home has decided to go with a more tropical look, giving the house interest and curb appeal.
This is the yard I will transform into a beautiful garden. The homeowner has already removed the lawn and tilled the soil. Together, we roped off where the dry creek will be installed.
To add dimension and texture to the yard, we've decided to add a dry creek and a berm, a hill in the background, so that more can be seen from street level, and it'll also help to save on water. There's an existing sprinkler system under the lawn here, so I'm going to start by capping off all the sprinkler heads I don't need and replace it with drip irrigation. That'll help me to deliver water only to the plants I want to support and not to the weeds. To do this, you remove the existing structures, and I'm going to just cap it off and leave only one left at the very end to attach my drip system, and that'll allow me to not have to install any additional piping or anything else. All of this will eventually be underground and unseen.
This planter bed is overgrown and would be part of the renovation project. The homeowner wants some of the plants replaced and would like to see a more lush look to the entire planter bed.
Because I'm converting from an existing sprinkler system into a drip system, I've inserted this long pole so that later on I'll know where to go to cap off and get my water access.
To start this bed, I'm removing all the dead parts of the plants. This gives the whole area a fresh look. I'll shape the plants I plan to keep, and I'll remove the ones that will be replaced.
Since I'm converting from a PVC sprinkler system to a drip irrigation, as I'm going through the yard, I'm capping off most of the sprinkler risers. Here is going to be where I access the water for the entire drip system. So little by little, as I take it out, I'm capping them off, but this one I'm going to put a nice long riser so that I'm very sure of where the sprinkler system will attach. It's important not to get dirt or rocks into the sprinkler system. That can cause a problem later on. So I'm going to put a nice tall riser so that later on when I go to add the drip system, it's easy for me to find. Then, on the top, I'll put a cap. And we'll come back to this.
I dug out the dry creek and used the dirt I removed to build the berm behind it. As I work, the berm will start to take a more definite shape.
As you can see, I'm almost done clearing out the dry creek, just a few more finishing touches. And before I put in the rocks, I'm going to line it with a weed cloth. It's a densely woven screen that will hopefully prevent the weeds from coming up through the rocks. But it's better than using plastic. Plastic would trap water both from rain and irrigation, and that might breed mosquitoes. We don't want that. So I'll finish digging it out, line it with the screen, and then start loading in my rocks. As you see, I've laid in all the weed fabric. Wherever there's a seam, I have left plenty of overlap so that weeds can't get through. I've also left plenty of overlap on the sides. Once I get all the rocks placed, I will fold in all the excess, providing extra coverage. To make sure that my weed cloth doesn't blow, doesn't move, I'm going to set rocks all around the perimeter as well as into the basin. And then later on, I'll come in and arrange them in a way that looks best. As you see, I now have the rough layout of the dry creek. Next, I'll move in more stones and complete the lining of the bed with all the rocks. And at the very end, I'll tuck in all the dark edges underneath the rocks, again, to provide additional weed protection. So we now have all of our boulders and all of our river rocks here in front, and I'm ready to start placing the rocks. I'm going to start with the boulders to help hold up our hill, and then we'll fill in all the creek bed.
As I place the rocks in the dry creek, I make sure all the areas are covered and the creek is completely covered without becoming too thick. I'll fold under the weed cloth so it's not visible in the very end. As you see, I'm now adding smaller rocks to fill in any gaps in the dry creek.
As you can see, I have finished the dry creek. I've placed all my boulders, created my hill. The next steps are to lay in the drip irrigation system, and then we get to plant. Earlier I explained that I was going to convert an existing sprinkler system to a drip irrigation system. First, I capped off all the sprinkler heads except for one, in this case this one. I'm going to attach this supply hose to this using some simple connectors I got at Home Depot. So, I'll remove this long one. I put this here just so it wouldn't get filled with dirt. And I'll insert a much shorter one, which I will screw into this. And eventually, I will come back and hook this to this, and a little trick. So what holds it in place is pressure. But it's a little hard to force this in, so I'll dip this into some boiling water, just about that much, so that the tip gets nice and loose. And then it'll go in easily. Once it cools, it'll stay put. I'm going to reduce this greatly so it stays low profile right near the ground.
First, I dip the hose into hot water. That'll soften the end of the tube so that it'll go into the adapter. And then force it in. Pressure holds it in place. I remove the long pipe. And then install a much shorter, low-profile pipe so that the hose will eventually disappear into the landscape. Now I attach the adapter. Tighten it up. And there you have it.
Okay, I've laid out the rough outline of my supply line. This is not what will provide the water to the plants individually, but it'll provide the water to the much smaller hoses I use to deliver water to the base of the plants. This is an amazing tool. It has a cutter and a thing to poke a hole into the hose so that later on I can insert the sprinklers. So what I'm going to do is cut the hose, and then to keep the water from coming out the end, I'm going to use, it looks like an 8. You slide it over and then kink the hose and slide it back. This provides a clean end to the hose. As you may have noticed, I put rocks to kind of hold the hose in place. This kind of keeps it from flopping all around, but through the heat of the day, the hose will calm down and conform to its new shape. Eventually, I'll remove all the rocks and it'll stay right where I put it. Because the homeowner has multiple watering stations in his yard, I'm going to split up the irrigation system, put half the sprinklers on one system, half on the other. This is the other system. that'll take care of this bed and half of the front yard bed.
I'm inserting a T in the hose so I can cover two separate areas with the same water supply.
So now we get to the good part. We get to start putting in the plants. But the first thing I need to do is amend the soil. This soil is pretty heavy clay. I've already pre-dug the holes, broken up most of the chunks. To keep it from rebinding, I'm going to add sand. Then, because the soil is pretty much stripped of all of its nutrients, I'm going to add a little steer manure, a little garden soil. It's not quite mulch, but it gives something to the dirt and to the plants to keep it a little light and fluffy. And finally, a little bit of peat moss to help it to hold the moisture after I water. So I'm going to start by amending the soil, and then we'll go ahead and set our plants in. Okay, so I'm going to kind of show you the proportions to use when amending your soil. Oh. A little bit of sand. This is the dirt I'll put in around the plant. And again, the sand will help it to keep from rebinding. Then steer manure. Go light with the steer manure. Too much can burn the plant. I'm going to mix in a little bit of organic garden soil. And as you'll see, it's just all kinds of bits and pieces of broken up wood and plant material. This I would normally apply pretty liberally, but because we're planting a lavender plant, they don't like a whole lot of that in their soil. So again, I'm going to go a little light. And eventually, all of this will get mixed in, and it'll be used to fill in behind the plant. And finally, peat moss. Peat moss, like I said, will help hold the moisture in the dirt so that when you water, the plant can get all the moisture out of the soil. Then, I'll give it a good mix. I try to break up as many of the dirt clods so that when I mix it into the soil, it stays light and fluffy. It makes it easier for the roots to get through and do what they need to do to provide health in the plant. I'm not sure if you can tell on video that the quality of the soil has improved dramatically because of these additions. Okay, I think we're fairly well mixed. I'm going to put a little bit of the soil into the bottom of the hole to make a nice little bed for our new plant. This plant, according to the label, will grow about this wide. Behind me is a little walkway, so I've moved the plant way forward so when it reaches adulthood, it won't block the path. And it fits just perfect. So now we'll backfill. I'm also going to form a bit of a water ring so that when I water the plant, all the water stays just for this plant. Now, I'm going to give it a lot of water, help settle the soil, and give it a good drink. hopefully it'll be happy in its new home. Okay, so now we're going to install the individual sprinklers to feed each plant. We're going to use a supply line that will come from the main hose, and then we'll install individual sprinklers to water only the plant, but not the weeds. And we'll use this handy tool to do it all. So I'll take a little bit of the supply line. I know it needs to be at least this long, but I'll allow a little extra in case over time my needs change. I cut off a piece, then I take the sprinkler head. I force one end into the end of the hose. The other end, I insert the sprinkler. Then I take my tool and I use this point to poke a small hole in the hose. I take this end with the sharp barb, poke it into the hole, and then insert my sprinkler. Now I'll do the same since this is a tree on the other side. Might need a little more water than some of the regular plants. And it's that simple. Okay, so now I have all my sprinklers in, and this is what they look like when they're working. They're fully adjustable. They can be adjusted to a trickle, up a little more, or pretty full. I've adjusted these all. I've placed one or two by every plant, and now I'm just watering the plants, but not the weeds.
Here's the before picture. All the plants are in, spaced so that when they mature, they will fill in the entire area without crowding each other. As you can see, there is a variety of colors and textures in both the foliage and flowers. The final step was to set in a layer of mulch, in this case, shredded cedar. This gives the entire area a finished look. It also helps to retain moisture in the soil, and it helps prevent weeds. Any weeds that do grow will be rooted in the mulch and easy to remove. I hope you've enjoyed watching the transformation of this yard, and maybe it'll inspire you to take on a project of your own. Don't feel you have to tackle an entire yard at once. Instead, focus on a small part at a time. Each success will motivate you to take on another small piece. The end result will be your beautiful new garden. If you like my video, please click like. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I have new videos out, and thank you for watching.